Jacob Rees Mogg is the chair of the European Research Group and a leading Brexiteer. Jacob, you and other Brexiteers worked very hard to convince the fishermen that they'd be better off out. They voted for Brexit in their droves. You've heard Douglas Ross tonight says that deal's a bucket of cold sick. They must feel absolutely shafted.
Well, the Secretary of State for the relevant department said about 10 days ago that the UK would leave the common fisheries policy in 2019. I don't know what has happened in this very short period. It is deeply unsatisfactory.
You admit that that's gone badly wrong for the fishermen.
It's not for me to admit. I don't like this report at all. I make no bones about it. I think this transition agreement is a very unsatisfactory agreement, not just on fish. The only thing that makes it acceptable is the hope that it is leading to a proper Brexit at the end of 2020.
It's all very well saying that, isn't it?
This agreement gives away almost everything, and it's very hard to see what the government has got in return.
Right, so all that stuff that's now in green that you can't take back, you think are big misses?
Well, hold on. Nothing's agreed until everything is agreed.
Well, when it's in green, it's been signed off, hasn't it? So it doesn't get re-debated.
There is a process. Nothing is agreed until everything is agreed is an important part of this, because there is a staging post in the negotiations, and if the government isn't satisfied with things at a later stage, then it can pull back on things it has previously agreed. That's been set out very clearly throughout the negotiations. Now, when you look at the bits in green, so far, it looks like concessions from the British government without counter-concessions in return.
So that's all you see, is it? You see the UK giving up ground and getting nothing back.
Somebody said to me the government had rolled over but had not even had its tummy tickled. Now, the question then is, what is the end state? Many of us can swallow a good deal that is unsatisfactory in the transition if it leads to a proper Brexit in the end. OK,
let me look at the Northern Ireland border question that Nick was just raising. Theresa May is prepared to stand by what you already didn't like in December, i.e. if there is no deal, then the UK will remain fully aligned on those, particularly on those three things, but in the EU's understanding on everything, fully aligned with EU rules supporting North-South cooperation. So in other words, if there's no deal, we all remain aligned in the EU.
What that is saying is that we would stay in the European Union.
Right.
We'd still be in the customs union and the single market, at least to those parts that related to the Belfast Agreement.
Does that make no deal less attractive to you?
No, because no deal still means no deal. Bear in mind, the document issued in December...
Not if she's saying it goes back to what was signed in December.
The document in December said in an early paragraph that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. And then in a later paragraph that if nothing was agreed, then they might agree, then they would agree this. Now, what you have to ask, which hasn't been made clear, is which of those two paragraphs takes precedence? The earlier one that says nothing is agreed until everything is agreed, or the later one? And I would take the interpretation, and when it comes to votes in Parliament, would vote accordingly, that the primary paragraph is superior.
It does look like you're being boxed in. It looks like the PM has found a way of making no deal look much less attractive to you than a, let's call it a medium soft Brexit.
It's not a question of being boxed in from my point of view. It's a question of whether the government is going to deliver on the referendum result that we leave the European Union. The government is being very generous. It is offering £35 to £40 billion and wants in return a trade deal. That is very beneficial to the European Union. Bear in mind, without our money, for the final 21 months of the current multi-annual financial framework, the EU is insolvent. Now, people say, what plans have we made for no deal? What plans has the EU made for no deal? What has it said to Romania or Bulgaria or Poland about the funding that it won't get if the UK subvention doesn't come through?
In terms of where your loyalties lie, at one point you thought a no deal would be a much better way to proceed because the WTO regulations would take us back to zero tariffs. Do you still think that's the right way?
I have no qualms about a no deal.
No qualms meaning you'd still embrace one?
No deal is better than a bad deal. The Prime Minister said this herself in answer to Tom Newton-Dunn of The Sun.
Could you vote for no deal?
Well, I'm just quoting back what the Prime Minister said, and I support her on this, that no deal is better than bad deal. She said this at her Mansion House speech just a week or so ago.
So actually, the worse the deal looks, the happier you are to just walk away and say, we're better off.
I don't like this transition deal, but as I said earlier, it is acceptable in the event that the end deal is good. But on its own, this transition deal is deeply unsatisfactory, and the government has given way on too much.
Jacob Rees Mogg, thank you.
It's a
Thanks
great
for coming
pleasure.
in.
Thank you.